Hallelujah.
This morning, I want to welcome each and every one of us to this service. It is my prayer that the Lord Himself will reveal Himself to you by His word in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
This morning, as our custom is, or this afternoon rather, as our custom is, every last Sunday of the month, we usually talk to ourselves about how our family life can be better. And today, because of what is happening globally, I will be talking on the subject I have titled, Leading Your Family Through Change. Leading Your Family Through Change. And the text that we'll be using for this service
You have a pen.
can be found in Jeremiah chapter 35, verse 1 and verse 5 to 6. Jeremiah chapter 35, verse 1 and verse 5 to 6. And I read.
35.
Jeremiah chapter 35, verse 1 and verse 5 to 6. And I read. Go visit the Rechabite community. Invite them to meet with you in one of the rooms in God's temple and serve them wine. Then I will set out chalice and pitchers of wine for the Rechabites and said, a toast, drink up, but they won't do it. We don't drink wine, they said. Our ancestor, Jonadab, son of Rechab, commanded us, you are not to drink wine, you or your children, ever. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
When I first read this story about the Rechabite family more than 20 years ago, the first impression that I had about this passage is that there are certain principles and certain life choices we need to make that could influence our unborn generations. We are talking about leading your family through change. There is no doubt that we are all aware that what we are experiencing in our own generation today has never been experienced in previous generations before. The rate at which things are changing are so dramatic, are so rapid, that one needs the grace of God to be able to nurture children in this kind of environment that we live in. So what I'm going to be doing today is exactly what God instructed Jeremiah to do thousands of years ago. What I have done is to invite you into one of our platforms, which is the Zoom platform, to teach you about the principles to adopt in order to lead your family through the different changing scenes of life. There is one ancient Greek philosopher, his name is called Heraclitus. Heraclitus says that the only thing that is constant in life is change. And we cannot agree less to what Heraclitus says. You can see that all around even you as a person, you are changing. It is not the way you looked about 5 years ago that you are looking now. Somehow, there is some process of change that is taking place in our life. There is no doubt in my mind that we are in an unprecedented season of change. I remember more than 40 years ago when I was still a little baby, what I grew up as my first learning tool was something we call slate. Most of our children will not know what is called slate today. But that was what I grew up with. To write on a slate, to write ABC and 1, 2, 3 on a slate with chalk. That was what I grew up with. But about 4 decades after, what our children, particularly my little baby that is even not yet up to 2 years old, their own learning tool is just a tablet, an electronic device with complex and complicated algorithm. We can see that life is not static. Life is not in the same spot. Life is always evolving. And as life is evolving, the question we need to be asking ourselves is, how do I lead my family through these changes? As we continue to witness rapid and successive changes in the way the world around us is understood and interpreted, the big question that a lot of people are shying away from is, how do I lead my family through these changes? We cannot pretend not to know that changes are occurring. We cannot pretend not to see these changes as they are unfolding. So we need to ask ourselves, how do I lead my children? To be honest with you, every day of my life, one of the things that has preoccupied my mind in recent time is, how do I lead my children through this life? Because this is not the life we grew up with. Something has to be done so that we don't lose our children to the system of this world, to the way this world thinks. We have to do something. We have to be proactive. We have to be able to engage our society in a meaningful way and in the way that God has directed for us to be able to leave a godly legacy for our children. This question of how do I lead my family through these changes that are occurring in our society on a day-to-day basis leads me or reminds me of what Oliver Wendell Holmes, that great Supreme Court justice, said once about 3 types of people. Oliver Wendell Holmes said there are 3 types of people. Number 1, there are people who make things happen. Number 2, there are people who watch what is happening. Number 3, there are people who haven't the slightest idea of what is happening. My question to you is, which category of people do you belong? Are you part of the people that is just watching things happening? Or are you part of the people that does not even have an idea of what is happening at all? Or do you want to be among the people that are ready to make things happen? One of the decisions that I have made, that I consciously do something about every day of my life, is that I just don't want to watch things happen. I want to be among the category of people that is willing to make things happen. What the 3 types of people that Oliver Wendell Holmes told us about is a call for a sober reflection and a choice for positive action. Where does leading our family through changes begin from? I think that is another question we need to ask ourselves. How do we start? Where is the starting point? How do we begin? Well, if you will ask me, I will say that that leading our family through the changes that are occurring in our day-to-day life begins with the contour of our value system and our legacy. Those are the two things that are very, very crucial in starting about leading our family through the changes that are occurring in our life. The Rechabite family, the Bible says, their ancestor, can you imagine? It wasn't even their own father. It was their great-grandfather that they did not even knew about. It was that great man of God who instructed his own children that in this family, you are not permitted to drink wine. You are not permitted to be unruly. You are not permitted to be wayward. You are not permitted to be a wayfaring Christian. In this family, what we know and what we uphold is the word of God. That was the standard. That was the value that Jonadab, the son of Rechab, laid down for his children's children. And many generations after, the children of Rechabites still upheld that value of their forefather. That we will not drink wine. Even when the prophet was trying to see whether they are really standing by what their forefather said, wine was set before them, thinking they would say, okay, since it was from the prophet, they would just partake of the wine. But they said, no, this is the value that our forefathers has given unto us, and we are not ready to deviate from the values of our forefathers. If I may ask you, what do you truly value in life? The choice of what we become in life are influenced by our values. We don't just make decisions. Our decisions most of the time are a consequence of our value. And what we value, believe me honestly, you will prioritize. Whether you like it or not, every one of us, we have something we hold as our value. Everyone in life is in his or her life what I call core values. Our core values, which can also be called our DNA or our signature of life, is what enables us to make choices in life. For instance, my own core value in their order of importance are, number one, I value my health. Number two, I value learning. I value thinking, and I value creativity. Number three, I value my family life. Number four, I valued to be loved, to love and to be loved, to be loved. Number five, I value joy unspeakable. Number six, I value honesty and faithfulness. Number seven, I value passion. Number eight, I value impact-driven and achieving. I value investing in people, contributing to the society, and making a difference in life. And number nine, I value being the best in my vocation. But I like to tell you that it has not always been like that in my life. Before 2005, that was not my value. Those were not the values that I was upholding in my life, even though they still contain largely what I have mentioned before now, but they were not in that priority. Before 2005, my values, according to their order of priority, was number one, passion. I was very passionate. I was boiling with passion. Number two, I valued wisdom, which is still learning. Number three, I value impact driven. Number four, I value being the best in my vocation. Number five, I value honesty and faithfulness. Number six, I value joy unspeakable. Number seven, I value to love and to be loved. Number eight, I valued my health. If you see that order of priority, you will see that my health was the last in that order. But what a mistake I made. What a dangerous choice I made before 2005. After a prolonged neglect of my health due to my extreme passion to make a difference, that prioritization of core values nearly ended my life and my dreams. And that was during a bout with life-threatening illness. I had to encounter a situation whereby my life was threatened to death because I valued passion beyond my health or above my health. I was like the proverbial Epaphroditus who neglected his health and was healed even nearing death until God had mercy on him. And not only on him, and also on Paul the Apostle. The story of Epaphroditus can be found in Philippians chapter 2, verse 27. What I'm saying is that it's not as if passion is bad, but it is not good to make passion one's number one core value in life. I still cherish passion in my life, but after 2005, I realized that passion should never be made a number one priority in my life or in the life of any other person for that matter. At my own risk and to my own detriment, passion was my number one core value, while my health was inconsequential and in fact the least significant aspect of my value. What happened to me was that my son nearly came at New Day because of my dumb decision to follow my passion at a very high cost of my health. But for Christ's mercy, I wouldn't have been standing before you today. Dear people of God, our family life, if you even see my order of core values, you will see that before 2005, my family life was not even in that radar at all. I wasn't even thinking about family life. I was just focused about how to be successful in life. But that was a great mistake that I made. But the point I am making is that it is impossible to make changes in our life if we don't have what we hold as our values. Your value will always determine the kind of choices that you make. The culture of a people, the culture of a nation, the culture of a group, the culture of a family, the culture of a community is usually developed around their core values. And that we can see in the life of the Rechabites. Their forefather, their ancestor developed a core value for the family, and generations after, they were still obedient to that core value. Now, having dealt extensively with the role of our values, or with the role values play in leading our family through change, I will also wish to ask you, what exactly do you want to be remembered for? What legacy do you want to pass on to your children and to your children's children? Paul said to Timothy, he said, I am reminded of you and of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother, Lois, and your mother, Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. You could see that if you are a student of Bible history, you will discover that Timothy eventually became a bishop in the church. But Timothy didn't just become a bishop just like that. It was because the choice to know God began from his great-grandmother or from his grandmother, Lois, which was transferred to his mother, Eunice, until it came to Timothy. Dear people of God, what legacy do we want to leave for our children? What do you want to make happen in your lifetime and beyond your lifetime? That is your legacy. What do you want your children to remember you for? What do you want your children's children to remember you for? That is still talking about your legacy. You know, we have to be very, very deliberate in the way we nurture our children. We shouldn't just allow circumstances and situations to just nurture our children for us. We should be intentional about the kind of legacy that we want to leave for our children and for our children's children. Somebody said, if you plan for a year, plant a seed. If your plan is just for 1 year, just go ahead and plant a seed. If your plan is for 10 years, he said, plant a tree. But however, he said, if your plan is for 100 years, he said, teach the people. When you sow a seed once, you will reap a single harvest. But when you teach the people, you will reap 100 harvests. Dear people of God, what that wise man is saying is that if we want our legacy to endure, we have to begin to commit our teaching to our children and to our children's children. We have to begin to inculcate in them the DNA of our family. We have to begin to cultivate in them what we stand for in our family. We shouldn't just allow anything to go. We shouldn't just allow anything to just take place. We must be deliberate. We must be intentional about the kind of value that we uphold in our family. Now, by the grace of God, I'll be sharing what I call 7 wheels on which we can lead our family through change. The 7 wheels through which we can lead our family through change. I'll be sharing the 7 wheels with you in a moment. Now, the 7 wheels of what I call a change process is, number 1, we need to learn how to cast a vision for our family. And I believe that was what Rahab did for his family. He cast a vision for the family. We have to be futuristic in the way we organize our family. We shouldn't just focus on the present. We shouldn't just focus on what is going to happen today. We must focus on tomorrow. We must focus on the future of our family. And so we need to cast a vision for our family. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. If we don't cast a vision for our family, what we are cutting is that we are allowing dangerous situation to take hold of our life. So the first point to start is to cast a vision for our family. What kind of family are we looking up to? What kind of family do we want our family to be known for? What do we want to be known for as a family? What do we want to be remembered for as a family? That is casting vision for the family. Oftentimes, when people hear of casting vision, most of the time they always think that casting vision is so that we can make our children to become a pastor or to become a priest. Or that is not all that there is to vision. There are so many things, there are so many values that we can train our children to imbibe in their life. They don't have to be a pastor like me. They don't have to be a preacher. Even if they become one, it is good, but they don't have to. We have to cast a vision for how we want our family, the kind of future we want our family to have. We have to cast that vision. I read something about bees sometimes ago, and there was a man who made this statement about bees. He said, the God of the bee is the future. Bee doesn't do anything except something that would determine their future. That is what bee does. Every of the decision that bees make is made towards the future. The decisions that bees makes are always projecting for the future. So we have to talk about the future. We have to think about the future in casting a vision for our family. The second thing that we need to do, or the second will in the change process, in initiating a change for our family, is that we must embrace the wisdom of God. We must embrace the wisdom of God. Bible says in Isaiah chapter 33 verse 6, it said, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy time. Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. So we have to embrace the wisdom of God. The season of change is a time to learn, is a time to unlearn, is a time to relearn, to steady the tide. Just like the hymn we sang at the beginning of this service, throughout the changing scenes of life. As we go through all the changing scenes of life, what we need to steady the tide is the wisdom of God. We need the wisdom of God to be able to stabilize our life. He said, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy time. We have to lead and guide our family through relevant knowledge. We have to plan. We have to engage in productive planning, which is the essence of wisdom. for us to be able to stabilize our family and to lead our family through all the changing scenes of life. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 3 to 4 says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. And by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. So we have to embrace the wisdom of God. We have to embrace relevant knowledge so that we can stabilize the tide of our family. We have to plan where we will live as a family, for instance. We have to make plan for that. We have to plan the kind of school that our children goes to. It is not any kind of school that we should just allow our children to go to. It is a school that will add to their value. That is the kind of school that we should allow them to go to. We should plan and regulate the inflow of the kind of information that they encounter every day. We have to plan for it. We have to regulate it. We shouldn't just allow the social media to be dumping all kinds of information on our children. Before you know it, they will be overwhelmed. We have to plan the inflow of the kind of information that they encounter on a day-to-day basis. It is a known fact that children develop in life around the conversation that they grow up with. So my question is, what kind of conversation do you want your children or your family to grow up with? What kind of conversation do you allow in your family? When you sit together as a family, what kind of discussion do you make together as a family? Remember, like I said, what we discuss about, what we talk about, what we deliberate about in our family, that is what will influence the kind of life that our children will eventually live. The number 3 will of our change process in leading our family is that we must be ready to create God's time in our homes. There must be God's time. We shouldn't be busy and working without remembering to create God's time. God's time is very, very important for every family. We must allow our family members to participate in the reading of the Word of God and in prayers. It is very, very crucial. It is very, very important. There is nothing that gives me joy when I see my little baby that is not even up to 2 years. When we are praying, we will ask her to pray, and you will be so amazed. And she's been doing this since when she turned 18 months. She will pray for daddy, she will pray for mommy, she will pray for her siblings, she will pray for her cousins. That is the kind of things that gives me joy. And that is the kind of values that we should promote in our family. We should create God's time in our family. Number 4, we should intentionally train up our children in the way that they should go. We should intentionally train up our children in the way that they should go. In Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he grows up, he will not depart from it. You see, everything still boils down to what kind of conversation do we allow to prevail in our family? What are we always talking about? What are we watching together on the television, on the YouTube as a family? What kind of programs do you encourage your children? Or what kind of books do you encourage your children to read? These are the things that will form their core values. We must be intentional in the way that we train up our children. We must be intentional, like I said, about what they watch on TV and on YouTube. We must be intentional about what they read. We must be intentional about who are allowed to become their friends. And this is one area that a lot of parents are missing it. It is not everyone that should be a friend of our children. We must guard the kind of company that they keep. The Bible says, "He that walketh with the wise shall be wise, but a companion of fool shall be destroyed." We have to watch the kind of company that our children keep. So we have to be intentional about who they select to be their friends. We must be intentional about what they eat. You see, some children, they are suffering from obesity. The reason why they are suffering from obesity is because their parents don't guard, they don't watch what those children are eating. They eat anything they see. But if we truly love and value the life of our children, then it is important for us to be intentional about what they eat. We must be intentional about letting them know the place of God in their life. It is very, very important. Your children must know that God is very, very important. Just like a fish cannot do without water, that is how a man cannot do without God. It is important for us to let them know the place of God in their lives. Number 5, we must make decisions in the overall interest of our family. That is the number 5, wheel of our change process. We must make decisions in the overall interest of our family. We must never be selfish in our decision making. I have seen some parents making selfish decision that doesn't put their children into consideration. We mustn't be such parents. Our decision must always be such that put our children, our wives, and our loved one into consideration. We mustn't just make decisions based on money. Money is not about everything. You must value the peace and the joy in your family above every other thing. One thing I love about Joshua is he said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That wasn't a selfish decision. It was a decision that was consciously made in the interest of the family. We have to always put our family interest first in everything that we do. The number 6 wheel on our change process is that we must be willing and be ready to be adaptive and flexible. We should not be too rigid. We should not be one-way traffic. The hallmark of leading a change in our family is embracing adaptability and flexibility. That is the essence of change. Things will not always go as you have planned initially, and that is why you must give room for flexibility. There is a saying that says, man proposes, but it is God who eventually makes sure that what we propose come to manifestation. We must be flexible in our plans. Permit yourself to make a mid-course adjustment when things doesn't go in the right direction. It is allowed. Don't say, okay, this is what I have done, and it is now a rule that is set in iron. No, we must be flexible. We must be willing to make mid-course adjustment when things doesn't go in the right direction. And that reminds me of the story of the prodigal son. In Luke chapter 15, verse 11 to 32, the prodigal son thought he could live without a family. He thought he could survive without the influence of his family. So he decided to travel to a far country. But after a while, after spending all that he had, and he began to be in want, he remembered that he had a family. He adjusted his course midway. He discovered that the way he was going, he was not going to make any success out of his life. He became flexible. He became adaptable. He decided that I will go back to my father. That should always be our priority. When plan doesn't go the way we want, we must be ready. We must be willing to change our course of action. The number 7 will of our change process is that we must let our failure in life, or let me say our failures in life, to teach us valuable lessons. We must allow our failures in life to teach us valuable lessons. I tell you, once in a while, our children, they will be adventurous. They will want to do one thing or the other on their own. We should pray for the grace of God. But once in a while, they can encounter failure. But rather than castigating them, rather than bringing them down, rather than talking them down, let's allow that failure to teach them a valuable lesson about life. What I am saying is that you don't have to be afraid to fail. The reason why many people cannot fly today is because of the fear of failure. They cannot take a step. They are suffering from inertia. They are afraid to move. They are fearing failure. But rather than fear failure, I will encourage you to begin to learn how to fail forward. Learn how to fail and to learn from your failure. If there is anything I am grateful to God for, is that I have learned more and more from my failures, more from my success than my success, rather. I have learned more from my failures than from my successes. So we shouldn't allow failure to bring our children down. when our children are making mistake, or when they make a mistake, don't let us feel that is probably the end of their life. There is something that failure can teach them. Let's encourage them to learn the value or the lesson that failure is trying to teach them. It is my prayer that as we all try to navigate this difficult situation that we are all into all around the world, my prayer is that God will grant us the strength and the spirit to be able to implement these changes in our life